We've been talking about reflexive pronouns with reflexive verbs. All reflexive verbs end in SE. When the verb ends in SE, you know you have to have a reflexive pronoun. Your reflexive pronouns agree with your subject. Why do we conjugate? Verb and subject must always agree. What does that do? It tells us that the subject is doing the action, doing that verb. That's what that means. Okay. So for reflexive verbs, little joke here. ¿Y tú cómo te llamas? The verb agrees with your subject. The tú is the subject. Llamas would be the verb. Llamar, conjugated for the to form. Drop the AR. Add an AS to agree with the to form. That's a conjugation. That means your reflexive pronoun, te, agrees with your subject, and so does the verb that agrees with your subject. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is direct object pronouns. If you guys are okay with me shortening this, direct object pronouns, I'm just going to say DOP. So I don't have to say direct object pronouns 20 million times. I don't want you to confuse it with reflexive pronouns. The same rule applies where if you have one verb, you're going to put it before the verb. If you have two verbs, you're going to attach it at the end, but it's only when it's two verbs in a row, back to back, nothing in between. You don't conjugate the second verb. You still attach the right pronoun, whether we're talking about reflexive pronouns or whether we're talking about direct object pronouns. You're still going to put it in the same place. So the placement is going to be the same, but two different functions of what we're going to talk about. So I want you to start thinking about direct object pronouns, and since Valentine's Day is coming up, I found this little graphic that might make you think about this. It's kind of a little grammar joke, so hopefully by the end of the presentation we'll get, make me the direct object of your affections, Valentine. So think about somebody giving a card and somebody receiving a card for Valentine's Day. Okay. The whole point of using direct object pronouns is to restate. In our case, we're going to rewrite, since we are doing it in writing first. We're going to rewrite or restate something that's already been said. For example, whenever you answer questions, in normal conversation, we don't answer questions in complete sentences. Are you going to study the reflexive pronouns for the quiz coming up? Yeah, I'll study them. What is it them I'd be talking about in that sentence?
Reflexive pronouns.
The reflexive pronouns. So you're going to take what's receiving the action, what needs to be studied in that case, and replace it with a direct object pronoun. So I'm going to tell you how to do this in English first, since a lot of people don't know what direct object pronouns are in English, and then we'll flip to Spanish. So, you're now going to be looking at what receives the action. Okay? So that's going to be our key thing that you're going to hear over and over and over again. The object that directly receives the action is a direct object of the sentence. Bill hit the ball. What received the action? What was hit? The ball. Okay? So the ball received the action of being hit. That's your direct object. Sherry reads the book. Who or what is being read? The book. The book is your direct object. Okay? We're now looking at what receives the action. Not who does it, but who receives it. So the direct object can also be a person. Sherry hit Bill. Who got hit? Who did the hitting? What's your subject? Sherry. Who's the object, the direct object? Bill. Bill received the action. You always find the direct object by answering the question, who or what, whom or what is receiving the action? Whatever the verb is, who's being hit in this case. Okay? So, Bill hit the ball. What did he hit? What received the action? The ball. Sherry hit Bill. Who got hit? Who received the action? Bill did. So, the point of, if you're having a whole conversation about some fight that just took place, Sherry hit Bill. Bill, 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 Bill. You're going to start replacing it with him. Who's the him we're talking about? Bill. Okay? So you're going to replace the noun with a direct object pronoun. For example, you're having a whole conversation. Paul brought the flowers. He took the flowers home. He gave the flowers to his dog. Flowers, 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 flowers. If I don't want to say flowers, and I know we're talking about flowers, and there's a whole conversation about flowers, I'm just going to replace the word flowers with them. Then I know that them is referring to flowers. Okay? We commonly do this all the time in English. In Spanish, you have to use your direct object pronouns, same way that we looked at subject pronouns. Now, I want you to think, subject pronouns, what we have as a subject, the beginning part of a sentence. Reflexive pronouns that we just went over last week agree with the subject, which the whole point of reflexive pronouns is to reflect the action back to the subject. So, I'm brushing my own hair. I bathe myself. I'm doing an action to or for myself. Now, the third kind of pronoun, the fourth kind, because we've learned about possessive adjectives, which are kind of like pronouns used in the same way. But the same way that we used subject pronouns, you're going to look at your direct object pronouns. The first top three, me, te, and nos, look exactly the same as your reflexive ones. They just look the same. I apologize, I did not make up Spanish. I don't try to make things confusing. I just want to point out to you that they look the same, but there's an entirely different function. We're not now making these agree with your subject, like we did with reflexive pronouns. We're now making these replace what received the action. Not who's doing the action, but who received the action. So the bottom one's a little bit different. This is your box for direct object pronouns. You're going to use these to replace the object in the sentence. How you find the object is that you see who's receiving the action. Okay? So, and those are them with their definitions there, which you would replace it with. Okay. In an affirmative statement, meaning I'm telling you something versus I'm telling you to not do something, the direct object pronoun comes immediately before the verb. Now, that should sound familiar to you. If you have a pronoun and you have to put it before the verb, we also did that with reflexive verbs. So, look at this sentence. We know that tengo means I have. Tengo la pluma. Do I need the yo form in front of tengo? You already know that tengo is the yo form of tener, which is to have. I have the pen. Pen, 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 I have a pen. Do you have a pen? Can I borrow a pen? Pen, 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 pen. What can I replace pen with? It, in English. In Spanish, you're going to take away la pluma, and you're going to replace it with the direct object pronoun that agrees, right here, with something singular and feminine. So, la pluma is singular and feminine. La tengo would mean I have it. Now you might be saying to yourself, these words are exactly the same. But what is this la in front of pluma? The. This la in front of tengo is what you took away and replaced, put it before the verb, I have it. Okay, it referring to the pen. The pronoun la comes immediately before the verb tengo, if it's one verb, and it has nothing to do with your subject. If it had something to do with the subject, then I would know that this would have to do with the yo form, and it doesn't. La has to do with pen that was replaced. Okay, so direct object pronouns, we're no longer looking at the subject, we're looking at the object receiving the action. Okay? It has to agree with the noun that it's replacing. So, again, you're going to look at the object receiving the action and replace it, but make it agree. Same, everything in Spanish agrees in gender and number. Feminine, masculine, singular, plural. Okay? Juan lo tiene. We're going to see some sentences already done, and then we'll come back and work from the beginning. Okay? Juan has it. Juan and the verb tiene are conjugated. Those two agree. But he has it. What is an it that he has? From this, we don't know. But what we can tell is that the lo tells us that it's something singular and masculine. For example, a book. El libro. El libro would be the book. So el libro would be replaced. Now working from the bottom up, Juan has the book. Who or what is being had? What's receiving the action? The book. So you take away the book and you replace it with lo, and then we have to figure out what to do with that direct object pronoun. You put it before the verb if it's one verb. Okay? So lo tiene would be he has it referring to the book. What if, we have the Juan tiene example here again, what if somebody has something plural? So we can work kind of from the middle here. Maria tiene los libros. She has the books. She now has plural books. Maria and tiene have to agree. Subject and verb go together. But now she has plural things. Take away los libros, the object of your sentence. Figure out if it's feminine, masculine, singular, plural. We can tell that by the endings. We can also tell that by your articles. Now, does the los libros look exactly the same as what we're going to put in the sentence, the direct object pronoun? Absolutely. Again, I apologize that it looks exactly the same, but has two very different functions. It looks just like your definite articles that we put in front of our nouns, los libros, but here we're talking about Maria tiene los libros is the books, versus when we replace the books with them, she has them. Two different things. Okay? La como. How do you know what your subject is here? Your verb and subject are always together, always have to agree. So we should know that in present tense, all our verbs that end in O are talking about myself. This means I eat it. What is the it that I eat? Something feminine and singular. It can be la comida, la manzana, anything that is feminine and singular. What if I eat it, but it's something masculine? You have to make it agree. So it has to agree with the same gender. It could be anything masculine and singular. Lo como, I eat it. I eat something feminine, I eat something masculine. Remember, all words in Spanish have gender. I read it. I read something feminine and singular. So I want you to notice here that your subject, that doesn't really have to be there, although if it makes you feel safe to have the subject there, to just have a placeholder, subject always goes up front. Subject, verb, always agree. But when you're going to replace your object with a direct object pronoun, you're going to put it right before your verb. And so you no longer need your subject, because the whole point of using this is to restate something that's already been said. My verb tells me who did it. I don't care about who did it. The verb already tells me that. I now care about who received the action. So the direct object that receives the action is going to get replaced by a direct object pronoun, a DOP. Okay. What happens when we have two verbs? And again, only when the verbs are back to back, we normally don't conjugate the second verb. Right? We know that. What did we do with reflexive pronouns? If we had the second verb that was a reflexive verb, conjugate the first verb, don't conjugate the second verb, attach the right pronoun that agrees at the end of the second verb. So, you can, technically, when you have two verbs together in a row, back to back, in a sentence, you can put your direct object pronoun in front, the first verb. But for the purposes of us doing this and all ending up with the same answer, I want you to notice that you have two verbs. For example, él va a pagar. He is going to pay. He's going to pay what? We would have something in this case that would be feminine and singular. He's going to pay it. Let's say it's the bill, la cuenta. Okay? Because you have two verbs, I don't want you to put the direct object pronoun in front of the first verb. I want you to attach it at the end of the second verb that's not conjugated. Everybody follow me so far? Okay. I want to buy it. I want to buy something masculine and singular. I don't want you to put it in front of the verb. I want you to attach the lo at the end of the second verb. By the way, this is a typo right here. It should be comprar, to buy. It's just missing an R there. So, yo quiero comprarlo now makes sense in English. If you have two verbs, it's in the same order. I want to buy it. It gets attached at the end of the second verb. Same that we do with reflexive pronouns. Placement is the same. If you have one verb, you put it before the verb. If you have two verbs, you attach it to the end of the second verb. Still don't conjugate that second verb. And now we're talking about direct object pronouns. Here's a couple of examples already done. I know you. Who or what is being known? You. So you are receiving the action of being known. You're going to go to your direct object pronoun box, and you're going to look for the you. In this case, you would have to know that the you is familiar versus the you being formal. So if it's something familiar or informal, it would have to be specified there. Now, here's where I want to make sure that we understand. We're going to practice this, and we're only really going to use the bottom ones the most. The lo, la, los, and las. And I want you to think about this logically. Why would the bottom ones be used the most? Just like with reflexive pronouns, why did we use the se the most? The bottom conjugations, bottom two boxes, have more options. Él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, anything singular, anything plural. So you're going to use the bottom ones the same. You're going to use them more often. And then I want you to think that the reason why we use them more often also with direct object pronouns is because normally a singular or plural thing is receiving the action. I'm not usually receiving the action. You're not usually receiving the action. We are not usually receiving the action. But here are a couple examples where they are. Okay? I know you. I'm being known. You use the te. She loves him. Who's receiving the love? He is. So you're going to replace it with something singular or masculine. Lo. Juan eats 2 sandwiches. Juan come 2 sandwiches. You have to look at sandwiches. When you're doing the word in Spanish, you have to see if it's not talking about a person, the object still has a gender. Sandwich is, in this case, masculine, and we can tell by the end, and plural, because we have 2. Okay, so it ends in an E, and it's masculine plural, so you go to your direct object pronoun box and replace it with something masculine plural. Los. He eats them, them referring to the sandwiches. They call us. Who's receiving the call? We are. So you go to the us box, the we box, and you replace it. That's the direct object pronoun that you replace us with. He loves me. Who's being loved? I am. So then I want to show you a couple of examples where we use the top 3. Normally the top 3, I, you, us, are not receiving the action. It's normally one thing, object or person, or plural things or people that are receiving the action. Okay? So it's more common for something singular, something plural to receive the action, but we can have people as well. Now let's come back to my little grammar joke. Sorry, I'm a grammar nerd. Make me the direct object of your affections, Valentine. Why should that make sense? We're always looking at who's receiving the action. The action here is the affection. I want to receive your affection. I want to be loved. I want you to love me. I want to receive the love that comes from you. Does that make sense? Okay, I saw one tiny smile there. So, think about who's doing the action, which would be a subject. Think about who's receiving the action, or the affection in this case, which would be the direct object, which is receiving the love, the affection. Okay? With reflexive verbs, here's another joke I found on Facebook. You go to foreign countries and you see little notes written in English for tourists. And this is one of those lovely examples of things that don't always make sense. Don't touch these things. Like, you know, you go to fairs, they're like, don't touch. But they put, don't touch yourself. Like, don't get it off the shelf yourself. Ask for help. Ask somebody to come get it. But look at the little sign. Don't touch yourself. Ask the staff. Thank you. If you were to put the reflexive pronoun in the wrong place, and now doesn't make sense. We're talking about if you're using a reflexive pronoun, you're doing something to or for yourself. Okay. This came up with the project. Some people wanted to use just regular verbs for the project. If you use just the verb to eat and you put a reflexive pronoun with it, that means I eat myself. I don't want to have my finger as a snack. Okay? You're only doing actions to or for yourself, most of the daily routine things that we have in our vocab. Okay? So, let's try a couple of these. Your direct object pronouns, DOPs, are me, te, lo, la, nos, los, and las. Okay? He ate the tacos. What's the object? Tacos. Feminine, masculine, singular, plural. Masculine and plural. So go to the masculine plural, replace it with los. El los comió means he ate them referring to the tacos. Okay? The subject does the action, the object receives the action. Okay? Whoops. She sings the song, la canción. Feminine and singular. So you're going to take la canción away, put it before the verb. The la means this looks the same, but it's two different things. The first sentence, she sings the song, versus she sings it. It referring to the song. Different meanings, different functions. I have the flowers. It's an exception word. It looks masculine, but it's actually feminine. You can always tell by the article in front of it. I have the flowers. I have them. Them referring to the flowers. He bought the book. He bought it. The it for masculine singular is not the same as the definite article. All the other ones make it more confusing because they look exactly the same. We eat French fries. How did I know it was we? End of your verb always tells you who the subject is, who did the eating. Okay? We eat the French fries, we eat them referring to the French fries. I'm going to buy a book. Now I have two verbs. What happens when we have two verbs? So you're going to still take away what's receiving the action, what's being bought, replace it with a direct object pronoun. Instead of putting it before the first verb, you're going to attach it at the end of the second verb. You're still going to not conjugate that second verb. Two verbs in a row, don't conjugate the second one. Attach your direct object pronoun at the end that's still replacing the object receiving the action. Okay, so the placement is the same as your reflexive pronouns, but now we are rewriting sentences, restating, so to speak, restating something using a direct object pronoun instead of the object of the sentence. Okay, so just to clarify, reflexives have to do with your subject. They agree with your subject. Direct object, the pronouns replace the object receiving the action. You put it in the same place as the reflexive pronouns, but now we're looking at what's receiving the action, not what's doing the action, which is your subject. Okay. And on my website, I put the same presentation that we just went over. There's a video link for the class notes that we're about to take on there as well, and there's some extra practice just going through it step by step. Feel free to watch the videos, pause as you need, go through it again until it sticks and we know the difference between both reflexive pronouns, direct object pronouns, and we should know our subject pronouns are always our subjects.